Hey guys, Kyrie here in another YouTube video. I got you the Kindred build guide. It basically has everything you need in terms of like your setup, what runes you usually take, what shards, what jungle pets, items, and why and when you should go with them. It has over 15 builds or so, I think like 15, 17 from what I counted. So, have fun, and I'll tell you which ones are the most consistent, obviously, and then when you have the spot for other builds, or if you want to have some fun, I also give you those. So enjoy, and let's get into the video. So for shards, simple as it is. You go attack speed shard always. You always take adaptive. Never takes haste. When you play Kindred, it's really bad. And for the third row, you can take scaling health, fly HP, or tenacity. The only well, I don't show you fly HP on your screen, but you take fly HP if they have very annoying champions early game and they might invade you. You take scaling HP if basically you don't get invaded, and tenacity is really good if they have high CC. It helps a lot in the early game. For primary runes, you got Conquer, Lethal, and PTA. You can read them; they're pretty much they sum it up. But usually my most go-to rune when I tell people, like when people are trying to learn Kindred, I always tell them to take PTA, as it's very simple, very straightforward. You just have to proc it with 3 autos, and then you have lots of damage. Conquer is very high skill, so is Lethal Tempo. Lethal Tempo kind of is more comp dependent. Conquer is if you're really good at the champion. It's usually the most preferred rune when you play in higher MMR games. But yeah, all of them are pretty good, but I would always suggest taking PTA. And now for the sub runes, you always take Triumph, never take the others. For the third row, now, there's Alacrity, and then there's Bloodline. If you're used to the attack speed, or if you do get used to it, the lack of attack speed that you will usually get from Alacrity, Bloodline is actually very nice to have. The lifesteal and the extra HP you get when you have it fully stacked is very nice to have later on in the game. And I've been going a lot more recently, especially when I play like Lethal Tempo and PTA. To Conquer, I'll usually go Alacrity because I think I don't really need the extra scaling. And then Coup and Cutdown are pretty much preference, but yeah, differences are which build you're going and how tanky they are, usually. The secondary runes, there's only two trees you can take. 2 different trees. Inspiration or Domination. You either take Triple Tonic with Jackalope trades, you can go Free Boots with Jackalope trades, or you can go with your basic Free Boots Cosmic. All of them are good. I would say it's all preference or even depending on builds, but usually because I'm a very big believer in buying Triforce with Jackalope trades and just having the most stats possible, I think this is, the first row is probably the best runes you can take second. Some games you can go Domination, like Ulti Hunter is very nice. Usually I would only take Domination if I want Ulti Hunter. Treasure Hunter and Relentless Hunter, and kind of whatever, to be honest. But, it's all preference, your secondary runes. There's no straight up better one. But, yeah, my preference is taking Jack of all trades in most of my games with Free Boots. So let's go over jungle pets before we go into the builds. Because, of course, when you get into a game, there's a jungle pet you have to choose. And that's the only time you can choose it. You can't swap them out unless you want to lose out on gold, I think. I don't know how it works if you want to swap later. But either way, there's green, red, and blue smites. My most preferred is taking red smite, because red smite is very nice for the extra slow and damage. It allows you to chase people down. It's very OP. It's very nice. And also, if you didn't know, the burn sometimes when you buy collector, it might just randomly collect the enemy when they're low, because they're burning, right, from the red smites. So it's very nice. It's the strongest smite by far on Kindred. The others are kind of whatever. I think in terms of strength, it's red, green, then blue. I think blue is kind of mid. At the higher movement speed, you don't really need it. She's already very mobile, so having more tankiness or more kind of utility kind of damage is way better on this champion. So let's talk about Zeal items before I get into builds. I show PD in most of the builds later because I think it's just very OP to buy this item if you know how to use it. But of course, it takes practice to use it at its full, to use it at its fullest. But you can go Rapfire, you can go Brunans, Navori. Never go Fiendish. I don't know what this New Zeal item they made. I forgot the name already. But don't build it, please. Thank you. PD is very good if you can use it very well. Rapid Fire is very nice with crit builds because Kindred, if you didn't know, is actually a great poking champion at times. You know, when you get your marks and you have like 3-4 items, you can like queue forward and get good damage off, 200-300 damage off. That paired with the Red Smite is very insane. The Runeans, obviously, build it when they have a lot of short range champions, melee type champions. And then Devori is very nice if you really want a lower QW, like if you want lower QW CD versus the enemy comp. Basically, they have high dive, and you really want to kite the enemy team. First build, Kraken Collector, probably the most like basic build, known build on this champion. Very high in damage, very good when snowballing, very high carry potential. Very straightforward. You buy Kraken because it's her strongest first item in terms of damage and stats, and then you buy a shit ton of crit items. Also, I don't know if you heard that vehicle outside. Sorry, but either way, yeah, you want to cap out your build with BT, and usually you want to take PTA with this build. You can go Conquer, but PTA is usually ideal. Kraken Triforce. This is one of my favorite builds. It's very high in tempo, has a lot of damage, a lot of like tankiness, a lot of like ways to kite the enemy and like just not be that easy to kill. Usually you do need to play for marks. Well, it does allow you to play for marks very easily because buying Cleaver or Triforce, the Phage, is very nice when trying to play for marks. It makes you be able to chase, be able to kite the opponents, and just not get one shots. Now after that, usually you just buy situational items. You can go LDR also third to just cap all your damage. LDR is all the damage you really need when you buy this, buy these kind of items. And sometimes you can go with center PD. You can also go like Jack of all trades with this kind of build. All very good. Kraken Cleaver, very good in double AUC comps because, you know, your double carries, and also going Cleaver, it makes your ult CD a lot shorter. It's very nice. And then you basically buy items that make you a lot harder to kill. You can go Bork if you want to have a lot more damage, but usually your main item that you're going to cap out on is BT because this item gives you a lot of ED after level 14. It's just how the item is, and your goal is to just be kind of mid/frontlining and just ulting for your tank and just doing as much damage as possible, proccing your Cleaver for your secondary carry to carry the game. And usually you need a lot of marks if you want to not lack too much damage. Kraken Wits End. So there's two ways you can build it. You go Kraken Wits into Cleaver or LDR, and then you buy other items. Basically, when you play on hit on Kindred, the main thing you need to understand is that when people complain, bitch and complain, like, oh, I don't do damage when playing on hit. Well, that's probably because you have no marks. The reason why on hit is very good and why you see me build it a lot is because it makes the components are very nice, very cheap compared to crit items, and they spike you very hard, the components. The full crit items, they spike harder, of course, but buying the components into the item is very insane. It makes you very tanky and allows you to play for a lot of marks. And the way you make up for the lack of damage items you buy, because of course crit items have more damage than on-hit items, is by getting marks. Marks will allow you to, it will make up for everything. They're just OP, simple as it is. Triforce Collector, very simple. You buy crit after Triforce. It is probably the best build you should learn. Kraken Collector is a really good build. You should learn Kraken Triforce and Triforce Collector. These are all three builds that any Kindred player should know how to play. If you don't know how to play these three builds, you are, I don't know what you're doing on this champion. Like, these are the most fundamental builds that you need to know how to play. They are the most consistent builds you can do on this champion, and some of the highest carry builds you can do. Kraken Cleaver is also one, but I don't really think lower evil players can really, you know, learn it that fast compared to crit builds. Crit builds are very simple. They only need 4 marks. Jeff Bezos. This is main character build. I do these kind of builds when I play Philios because IE is a very strong item. You only do this when you actually are able to buy the BS recall and you want to go IE. And then for second, you can go PD or Runeans. You can eventually buy the second other Zeal item later on. You can buy like a PD later, Runeans later, Rapid Fire later, whichever one you didn't buy. Just make sure you don't go 3 Zeal items, please. You're going to do no damage. And then the only real damage items you need is LDR and IE. The rest can be complete utility. So PD, Rapid Fire, very nice. Ruin as PD is very nice. PD shield bow makes it a bit tankier with BT last item. Very strong high carry build. You can take any Ruin with this build. It's very fun, and the games you can't do it, you're gonna have the most dopamine. Trust me. Jack of all trades Kindred. This is a build I kind of started. You go Triforce LDR, and you want to go Tabai Wits End. You can also do this with Merc Treads, Randuins to max out on stacks, but usually you want to do this build with Tabai Wits End because this will give you max stacks. It has the most stats possible for you to play the game. I think Kindred's issue last season especially was the lack of kind of damage early, lack of stats, and if you went this, it will allow you to play the early game a lot better. This season, I think it's not as bad, but I still think she does lack a bit in the early game. But if you are able to scale, I think you're very broken. And this build, the way the setup goes, you will have lots of ways to fight like anyone and just have damage. So you get to the point where you're unstoppable. The only time I would suggest you do this build is if you're really skeptical of like playing with Collector. So to me, honestly, if you're a noob, because Collector is very OP on her. But there are sometimes where you should do this build, is if you just want to be very, very OP on your 3 items, like 3-4 items, like when you're 3 crit items. Because sometimes when you go Collector, you might not always be able to go IE like after your 2, like after Collector LDR, if you do that build. You know, sometimes you might want to go Zeal, or you want to buy Shield Bow or something. So this IE item, to me, this season is very OP. So this build is not bad if you want it's pretty consistent, I would say, if you really want to do it, but you do need to get the BF Sword Recall when you're buying your second item. Because if you're relying on just buying Pickaxe and just like getting BF Sword Recall later on, I mean, it's kind of hard to itemize. Bruiser Kindred. Very high in haste, very good for your ultimate CD especially. The way this build works, it's basically on hits. You need to get marks, and I mean, you have so much HP to play with. You actually have a decent amount of damage also early on. You should be able to play for marks quite easily. You're very tanky. You will still do a decent amount of damage. Usually with this build, you can go Conquer or Lethal, but I think when you're learning this build, I think you should go PTA, and then when you get better at playing for marks and better at playing the fights using your ultimates, that's where you should start playing it with Conquer and Lethal. It's very OP if you know how to play this build. This build will lack damage if you run it down. If you're buying these items and you just keep dying, or even you die once, twice, 3 times especially, you will do negative damage. It is a very snowball-y build. You must snowball with marks. If you're not getting a lot of marks, you're going to start doing less and less damage. But if you are snowballing, if you are playing well, this build, it makes you very hard to kill and it's very slippery in fights. When you're Triforce Wits End with Tabis especially, this is a very premier combo on this champion, buying Wits End and Tabis together. You are very slippery, very hard to kill. You can't really be one shot. It's very OP and has decent amount of damage. And then you want to buy LDR, which is all the damage you really need on this champion, especially when you're getting marks. This build is very good when you're playing Jack of all trades especially. This is kind of the same as the build I just showed you, because you're going PD. Again, if you die, you're going to start doing negative damage. But this build has a lot of dopamine, but it's very mechanics like reliance. You need to have good hands. You will get LDR third, so you don't just have 0 damage. And after that, you just build whatever you want, to be honest. Just make sure you cap out your build with IE and BT. And you want to go like Lethal usually with this kind of build, because you have a shit ton of attack speed and movement speed to be able to like go in and out of the fights. Yuntal IE. Do not force this build unless you want to completely coin flip every single game you play in the, like, it's just so troll to force this build. I don't understand the obsession, especially with lower MMR players, would be like, oh, Yuntal this, BF Sword recalls, Storm Razor first. Like, these kind of items are so hard to build, and the stats on them are not even good. They're actually like, whoever's saying Stormers is good and stuff, like Yuntal is good, they're complete gaslighting you. These items are actually really trash, but honestly, if you're able to hit them and you want to have some fun, they're actually very fun to play. But they're actually, in reality, they're not very strong compared to the other builds, the more consistent builds. But if you do hit this build, and when you do, you want to usually play it with with Lethal Tempo, because it gives you a lot of attack speed, and you just cap out your build with more crit items. Unital Bruiser. This build, I mean, you're basically using Unital with lethal tempo. Has very good synergy with it. So this build, I'd rather suggest you do this build when you play Unital because you can't mess it up. It won't lack damage. You're gonna be able to play the game, and you just play for marks. You're most likely snowballing when you buy Unital anyways, because getting BF Sword first recall means that you got like 1 or 2 kills early game, so you're able to buy it. This is Unital Triforce crit, which is the last one was on hit. This one's crits. So yeah, you just buy Unital Triforce and you buy crit. This one's also really good to do, because you're buying crits, so you're always gonna do damage. But again, do not force this build unless you get a BF Sword recall. But of course, Unital has a longsword component compared to Stormrazor. So if you're a dagger sword and you randomly get a BF Sword recall on your second recall, you can do this build. This build is kind of for fun, but it's pretty fun to do if you're Giga Snowballing. You gotta rely on your hands. You have to have really good hands to play this kind of build because it's a lot of attack speed, a lot of movement speed. So you need to be able to play the fights very well. You really need marks with this build because it's very low on AD, but once you hit LDR, you're not going to have a damage issue. But yeah, most likely you're Omega Snowballing. When you're Unital Zeal, you actually have so much attack speed, you can basically kill, you can space call anyone, pretty much. It's very fun to do if you play it well. Attack speed, Steroid 2.0. Well, this one, you're buying Woodsend, so most likely they have heavy AP. That's one reason why you would ever buy Woodsend first or second on this champion. And then you buy Lord Dominik's or Cleaver. If you decide to go on hits, you probably should buy Bork and then cap out your build with BT. Either way, you just buy crit, LDR IE, that's also good. You kind of need 7 plus marks to not have 0 damage, so make sure you are playing for marks when playing these builds. Wits and Rush. You should only do this when they literally have 3 plus AP. And then you want to buy either on hit or you want to go into on hit or crits. Usually I would go on hits because if you're already playing Woodsend Rush, that means you're kind of playing more bruiser style, so you kind of need to play for marks anyways. But yeah, usually if they're not double EP mid jungle, you should not do this build. It's not bad because you're very hard to kill and you kind of rely on your lethal tempo plus your marks to do damage. So keep that in mind when you play it. Tank Shred build. There's also Kraken Bork Cleaver, but we're gonna look at this one. This one's really good when you kind of want the lifesteal. Usually I like doing this build with versus Rammus because you take a lot of random damage while hitting him, and Bork kind of makes up for the random HP loss, so you don't randomly just dying for fun. So Bork Cleaver is very nice, and you usually want to go Witsend PD BT. That's usually my full build, or even Runeans. This is pretty good into shorter range comps, because you're usually Conquer or Lethal if you're playing this build. You should never take BTA, because you're playing for the prolonged fights. It scales pretty well, especially when you have a lot of marks. Bork Crit build. So, it's kind of like Kraken Triforce, but you're buying Bork. It's pretty fun to do. Bork is a very good item. It scales very good throughout the game, because, once people get more and more in HP, the more value the item has. Yeah, this build's not bad. I mean, usually I suggest you go Kraken Triforce, but if you want to have some fun, this build is pretty good. You just buy crits, and simple as it is, build's gonna do damage. You go Conquer or Lethal Tempo with this build. High Tempo, Kraken PD. If you're snowballing, this build is very fun to play. It is very hard to play though, at the same time. And you want to be Lethal or Conquer when you play it. You're hard snowballing and you're kind of making fun of the enemy team. It's kind of a noob stomp build. People have seen me do it a lot and they see why it can be good. But when people try it, they wonder oh, I'm doing no damage. Well, that's probably because you are not snowballing, you randomly int, or you just don't have marks. So this build is kind of reliant on your skill level, but if you do know when you should do it, it is very rewarding to play. Some of these builds I show you guys in this whole video are kind of depending on your skill level, and if you get good at them, you're gonna feel the reward. When I play them, it's very fun. But when I was first playing this champion, I was playing more Triforce Collector, Kraken Collector, and stuff. But when I got better and really insane this champion, I can do any of these kind of builds, and it feels very fun to play when you are playing well. This is basically what I was talking about earlier. The most tank shredding build. You can kill pretty much anything, especially when you have a shit ton of marks. It is very annoying to play against a Kindred with this build when the player has 7-10 marks, because one, they have a lot of damage. Two, they can kill anything, squishy or tank, but usually you want to build this when they have high HP champions. And three, they're very hard to kill. They have a lot of HP, a lot of sustain, and a lot of like resistances. It's very good and very high. It's also the kind of another like higher kind of skill build, because you need to play a champion very well, and you need to have marks. You need 7+ marks with this kind of build. Like I said, with on-hit builds, usually my rule of thumb with on-hit builds, you need 7+ marks, so you're not doing negative damage. With crit builds, you only need 4 marks because you just need the extra range. But you know, the more marks you get, the more damage you get on this champion. So keep that in mind. You are rich, the richest player in the lobby. Well, it's not like the Jeff Bezos build. I mean, this build is kind of whatever. I don't like Stormrazor because this item is not even that good compared to the other items. It doesn't even do that much damage, and the utility of it is actually like kind of whatever. Like, you can tell it's actually just a better item, I would say. But if you do end up wanting to do this build because you want to be on the higher carry side while playing this champion, you're most likely dropping a lot of kills in this type of game. You should not force this build unless you get Stormrazor and you are Omega snowballing. So usually when you do rush this item, you want to go into IE and then LDR, and then you want to buy any of the situational items. Usually I would go Rapid Fire, because Stormrazor Rapid Fire allows you to chase champions down. You can also go PD if you already have like 10+ marks, meaning like you're Giga snowballing, or you can go Shubo BT combo, which makes you very tanky. And usually you want to go PTA. This is kind of the chasing build. It's kind of similar to the other one that we just looked at, but with Kraken. Kraken Stormrazor has high chase potential. Basically, your build should look like Kraken Stormrazor with like IE LDR Rapid Fire. And I mean, it's just a worse Kraken collector, honestly. But if you want to have some fun, because you want to have like get like the dopamine from like autoing them and getting a shit ton of movement speed, be my guest. But it's a complete for fun build. It's more for like chasing people down. There was one kind of similar to this back in the day in season 10, but that's when Stormrazor was kind of a stronger item, and you had Warrior back then. But yeah, kind of for fun build, but it's pretty fun when you do it. Noob Stomp. Very TikTok, very ADHD build. But have you seen, I mean, you guys probably have seen me do this build before if you've watched me for a long time. It's very fun to do when you're snowballing. And as it says in like the points down below, it says lobby admin. You're basically going to, I mean, you're going to run the whole game. You're going to kill everyone in the game. So you go Yumu Collector, and then with this build, you can go items like Stormrazor Rapid Fire combo with LDR. But I mean, it's kind of troll. I mean, LDR is not a must buy, to be honest, with this build. In my opinion, when you should do this build, usually they shouldn't be tanky. They should be very squishy. So you go Yumu Collector into Stormrazor, IE Rapid Fire. You have so much range, so much damage that, yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. You don't really need LDR. I know it says below that Collector, LDR are all the damage, well, is all the damage you need, but I mean, I don't know, just have some fun. It's kind of, it's a pure ADHD build anyways, but yeah. If you guys enjoyed this kind of video, let me know down in the comments below, like and subscribe. I can do these kind of build guides for any champion. I'll be playing Kha'Zix very soon. I mean, I don't think he's that great in the spot right now, in terms of like being able to consistently pick him, and also maybe I'm bored of him. Maybe it could be that. But I do think Graves and Kindred are a lot stronger as champions for the long-time followers of my channel. But yeah, I can release. I'll probably be releasing Graves next because I do think Graves and Kindred are very strong. I'll be releasing a drone materials very soon as I kind of figure out the game a lot more and know the meta very well, I would say. After playing a lot of jungle, a lot of AD carry, and just like monitoring like other roles, just watching other my friends play and stuff. So let me know what you guys think. If you guys want to see more content, you know, write it down in the comments. You know, show some support. You know, thanks for watching, and see you guys in future videos.